We like to think of human beings as the ultimate, intelligent apex predators. We conquered the planet. But for over 300,000 years, our ancestors walked around with a massive, glaring biological flaw that made them incredibly easy to hunt. We sweat. In fact, human beings sweat more than almost any other land mammal on Earth. And in a prehistoric world filled with giant monsters that could smell a drop of blood from 3 miles away, human body odor was a literal dinner bell. So how did the human race survive millions of years without soap, without deodorant, and without getting eaten in their sleep? Today, if you forget to put on deodorant, you might feel a little embarrassed at work or the gym. But 30,000 years ago, if you smelled like a human being, you were eaten alive. To understand why our scent was so dangerous, you have to understand the terrifying predators we shared the Ice Age with. Take the giant short-faced bear. This monster stood 12 feet tall on its hind legs, weighed over 2,000 pounds, and could sprint at 40 miles per hour. But its most terrifying weapon wasn't its claws or its teeth. It was its nose. Scientists have analyzed the skull of the short-faced bear and discovered that the olfactory bulb, the part of the brain responsible for processing smell, was massively enlarged. This predator didn't hunt by sight. It hunted by scent. It could smell the sweat, the fear, and the breath of a human being from miles away, through dense forests and freezing blizzards. And humans were walking scent bombs. Humans have between 2 to 4 million sweat glands covering our bodies. This was actually an evolutionary superpower. Because we can sweat to cool our bodies down, ancient humans could run for hours in the hot sun, literally chasing animals until the prey collapsed from heat exhaustion. It is a hunting technique called persistence hunting. But that superpower came with a deadly trade-off. Sweat itself doesn't smell. But when sweat mixes with the millions of bacteria living on human skin, it creates an incredibly strong, distinct, pungent odor. To a hungry Ice Age predator, a hunting party of sweating cavemen smelled like a giant, neon sign flashing the word food. So how did early humans hide? It is time for your prehistoric survival test. You are tracking a herd of deer, but you realize the wind has completely died down. Your scent is pooling around you in the dense forest. Suddenly, you hear the deep, rumbling growl of a predator closing in on your location. You have seconds to erase your scent before it finds you. What do? Do you pick option A? Run to a nearby river, strip down, and violently scrub your body with water and sand to wash the sweat off? Option B. Grab a handful of rotting animal guts from a previous kill and smear them all over your chest and arms? Or option C. Stand over a smoldering campfire and let the thick, suffocating smoke wash over your entire body? If you picked option A, jumping in the river to get clean, you are dead. And I will explain exactly why this modern habit was a prehistoric death sentence in just a moment. If you picked option B, covering yourself in rotting meat, you might temporarily hide your human scent, but you just made yourself smell like a dying animal. You didn't hide from the bear, you just gave it an appetizer. But if you picked option C, the campfire smoke, you survive. You have just unlocked the oldest, most brilliant biological hygiene hack in human history. Ancient humans didn't have chemical deodorants. Their deodorant was smoke. Anthropologists have observed modern hunter-gatherer tribes and discovered a fascinating ancient practice known as smoke bathing. Before leaving the camp for a hunt, or when trying to hide from predators, ancient humans would gather damp leaves, pine needles, and sage, and throw them onto hot coals. This creates a thick, pungent, billowing smoke. They would stand directly over the smoke, letting it seep into their hair, their animal hide clothing, and their skin. They weren't just doing this to smell like a campfire. Smoke is a natural antibacterial agent. The chemical compounds in wood smoke physically kill the odor-causing bacteria on human skin. More importantly, it completely masks the human scent profile. To a dire wolf or a short-faced bear, the smell of smoke triggers an ancient, hardwired instinct. Fire equals danger. When a predator smelled a smoke-bathed human in the woods, their brain didn't register food. It registered a forest fire, and they naturally avoided the area. By smelling like a natural disaster, early humans became invisible to the monsters in the dark. But smoke bathing was only the beginning. What happens when it rains and the smoke washes off? What happens when you are stalking a highly intelligent prey animal that knows what humans smell like? This brings us to the disgusting, terrifying reality of prehistoric hygiene. We assume that ancient cavemen were filthy because they were primitive and didn't know how to clean themselves. That is a massive misconception. Prehistoric humans went out of their way to smell as bad as physically possible. It was a calculated, highly intelligent survival strategy. If you wanted to hunt a mammoth, you couldn't smell like a human, and you couldn't smell like smoke. Mammoths were smart. If they smelled smoke moving toward them, they would stampede. You had to smell like the earth. Ancient hunters would literally cover their bodies in a thick paste of mud, crushed mint, pine sap, and sometimes the urine of the animals they were hunting. Imagine the psychological resilience required for this. You are freezing cold. You are starving. And before you can even try to get food, you have to strip down in the freezing wind and cake your bare skin in freezing mud and animal urine, just to temporarily erase your human identity. The mud served a dual purpose. Not only did it trap their scent against their skin, preventing the wind from carrying their body odor to the prey, but it also acted as a physical barrier against mosquitoes and biting insects, which carried deadly prehistoric diseases. Our ancestors weaponized filth to survive. Which brings us back to the most shocking realization of all: why getting clean would get you killed. Let's say you survived a massive hunt. You are covered in mud, sweat, and animal blood. You find a beautiful, crystal-clear glacial river. Your modern instinct screams at you to jump in, scrub the dirt off, and feel clean again. If you did that in the Ice Age, you were signing your own death warrant. In the prehistoric world, your layer of filth was your armor. The dirt, the ash, and the accumulated oils on your skin acted as a camouflage suit. If you took a bath in the river, you stripped away the ash that made predators think you were afire. You washed away the mud that hid your scent from the mammoths. You scrubbed away the pine sap that kept the biting flies off your skin. Worse yet, by washing away the dirt, you opened up your pores. The moment you stepped out of that river, your body would immediately begin sweating again, pumping out fresh, pungent human odor with absolutely zero camouflage to block it. You would be walking back to your cave, smelling exactly like a vulnerable, defenseless, soft-skinned primate. You would be the absolute easiest target in the forest. Taking a bath in the Ice Age was an act of evolutionary suicide. If the absolute brilliance of ancient human survival tactics gives you chills, and if you are grateful you can take a hot shower today without getting eaten by a bear, do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are proving that your ancestors were the most resilient creatures to ever walk the earth, and I want you in the tribe. Now, let's step out of the mud and look at the bigger picture. The desperate fight to mask our scent forced early humans to pay attention to something invisible: the wind. If you are covered in mud, but the wind blows aggressively from your back directly into the face of a predator, the mud doesn't matter. The predator will find you. Ancient humans had to become absolute masters of wind currents. Anthropologists believe this is one of the earliest forms of human environmental science. Hunters would pick up a handful of dry dust or crushed dry leaves and toss it into the air just to see which way the microscopic currents were flowing. They mapped out their entire hunting strategies, their migration routes, and even where they placed the entrances to their caves based entirely on the prevailing winds. They designed their entire civilization around making sure their scent blew away from the monsters and towards the empty plains. We think of human evolution as a story of weapons, fire, and intelligence. But survival in the ancient world was really a game of sensory warfare. The animals had better eyesight, sharper claws, and an infinitely better sense of smell. Humans survived by realizing they couldn't beat the predators in a fair fight. So, they cheated. They manipulated the environment. They used smoke to mimic forest fires. They used mud to erase their biological footprint. The reason you are alive today is because tens of thousands of years ago, a terrified human being realized that to survive the wild, they had to stop smelling like a human. If uncovering the brutal, unfiltered truth of human history gives you chills, do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are proving that your ancestors were absolute geniuses, and I want you in the tribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.